Ethan sat at the edge of the training arena, tying the straps of his simple combat suit. Around him, the great hall of the Stellar Academy echoed with the voices of alien cadets. They were tall, strong, and built for battle. Some had scaled skin that glistened under the lights. Others had sharp wings folded behind their backs, and a few had multiple arms carrying heavy weapons. Ethan was the only human in the academy, and he could feel their stares on him. "Look at him," one reptilian cadet hissed in his deep voice. "So small. He cannot even lift the standard blaster." A group of avian cadets laughed, their feathers shaking. "He is like a child among us, a fragile creature trying to act like a warrior." Ethan kept his eyes down. He had heard it all before. Every day was the same, mockery, laughter, and whispers. But inside, he held on to one thought. One day I will prove them wrong. The training instructor, a tall insectoid with a voice that clicked and rattled, called the cadets to gather. "Today you will spar in groups. Show your strength, your speed, your skill. Learn from one another." When Ethan's turn came, he stepped forward against a hulking reptilian cadet named Kor. The crowd immediately grew louder. They knew what was coming. Kor smiled with sharp teeth, towering over Ethan like a mountain. The fight began with a clang of the signal bell. Ethan raised his arms, trying to block, but Kor's first strike sent him rolling across the floor. Laughter burst from the crowd. "Is that all the human can do?" one shouted. "Maybe he should fight with children, not soldiers." Another yelled. Ethan stood again, his body aching. He rushed forward, dodging to the side, and tried to strike at Kor's ribs. For a brief second he thought he had found an opening, but Kor's tail swung around, knocking him down hard. The signal bell rang, ending the match. Kor raised his arms in victory while the crowd cheered. Ethan lay on the ground staring up at the bright arena lights. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He knew he had given everything he had, yet it was never enough in their eyes. After training ended, Ethan walked through the academy halls alone. His steps echoed softly while alien cadets passed by, still laughing about the fight. He stopped at the large window that looked out into the endless sea of stars. His reflection stared back, shorter, thinner, weaker than the others. Still, his eyes held a fire that no mockery could put out. That night, the Academy received a new mission. A forgotten spaceship had been discovered orbiting a dead world at the edge of the system. Strange signals came from it, and none of the alien cadets wanted to risk going inside. Whispers spread that it was cursed, haunted by the shadows of a lost race. The instructors asked for volunteers. The reptilians turned away. The avians shook their heads. Even the insectoids refused. Then Ethan raised his hand. "I'll go," he said firmly. The hall fell silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him in disbelief. "You?" one cadet scoffed. "You could not last a minute against Kor, and now you think you can face an unknown ship? You want to die so badly, human?" Another laughed, but the instructor, clicking his mandibles thoughtfully, allowed it. "Very well. The human volunteers. He will investigate. If he fails, then we lose nothing." Ethan said nothing more. Deep inside, he felt a strange pull, as if the forgotten ship was calling only to him. The next day, he boarded a small shuttle alone. The journey to the dead world was quiet. Outside the window, the stars drifted like frozen sparks in the darkness. His heart beat fast, but he refused to let fear control him. Finally, the shuttle reached the orbit of the broken planet. The forgotten spaceship came into view. It was massive, scarred with ancient battles, its hull cracked and covered in dust from centuries. No light shone from its windows. It drifted in silence, a ghost of the past. Ethan's shuttle latched onto the ship's airlock. With a deep breath, he stepped inside. The corridors were dark and cold. His footsteps echoed against the metal floor. Broken panels hung from the walls, and strange symbols glowed faintly here and there as if alive. Dust floated in the air like gray mist. As he walked deeper, he felt the strange pull grow stronger. It guided him through twisting halls until he reached a sealed chamber. The door was covered in markings, circles, and lines glowing with soft blue light. When he touched it, the door opened as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, the chamber was vast and silent. At its center stood a pedestal. Resting on it was a suit of armor, tall, sleek, and glowing faintly with golden lines. Unlike anything he had seen before, it seemed alive, breathing softly like a sleeping giant. Ethan stepped closer. The armor looked impossibly heavy, made for someone far stronger than him. But something inside whispered, "Touch it." He reached out, placing his hand on the chest plate. The chamber filled with light. The armor came alive, its lines glowing brighter. Slowly, the pieces lifted and moved, wrapping around Ethan's body. He gasped as the plates locked into place, but instead of crushing him, they fit perfectly. The helmet closed with a hiss, and suddenly he could hear a voice, not of a person, but of the armor itself. Chosen. You are chosen. Strength surged through him. His body no longer felt weak or fragile. Energy flowed through his veins, and for the first time he felt taller, stronger, unstoppable. Ethan stood in silence, looking at his reflection in the polished metal wall. The small, fragile human was gone. In his place stood something new, something powerful. And for the first time, Ethan smiled. Let them laugh now, he thought. They will see what a human can become. The shuttle door opened with a hiss as Ethan returned to the Stellar Academy. The ancient armor still clung to his body, glowing faintly with golden lines. When he stepped into the docking bay, the alien cadets waiting there froze. Their laughter died in their throats. The reptilian core narrowed his eyes. What trick is this, human? Did you steal that from the ship? Ethan shook his head. I didn't steal it. The ship gave it to me, the aliens muttered among themselves. Some laughed nervously, others looked uneasy. The armor was clearly not ordinary. It pulsed with energy, and faint symbols shimmered across its surface as if it were alive. The insectoid instructor clicked his mandibles, stepping forward. Strange. We have scanned that ship for years, but it never responded to us. Yet it reacts to the human? Curious. Core smirked. It does not matter. Armor does not change what he is. Weak flesh wrapped in shiny metal is still weak. Ethan ignored him. He could feel the armor's hum in his chest like a heartbeat, filling him with strength. But he also knew he did not yet understand its full power. He would have to learn. That night, when the academy was quiet, Ethan sneaked into an empty training hall. The armor moved with him like a second skin. When he lifted his arm, a faint shield shimmered into existence, forming a barrier of light. When he clenched his fists, energy sparked between his knuckles. He tried running. His feet moved faster than ever, carrying him across the hall in seconds. He jumped and landed as if gravity itself had less hold on him. The armor was not just protection. It was a weapon, a guide, and a teacher. And then the voice returned, soft and ancient, echoing inside his mind. You are the chosen heir. Train, learn, protect. Ethan listened carefully. The armor seemed alive, carrying the memory of the civilization that had built it. Every movement he made became smoother, stronger, more precise. It was as if generations of warriors whispered their skills into his body. For the first time, Ethan felt no weakness. He felt ready. But while he trained in secret, a storm gathered far away. Across the stars, a hostile warband had launched attacks on the outer colonies of the Alliance. These raiders were merciless, their ships swift and their weapons powerful. They struck without warning, burning settlements and capturing resources. The Alliance was caught unprepared. The Stellar Academy prepared to send its cadets to defend the colonies. The alien soldiers armed themselves with blasters, plasma spears, and heavy armor. They marched with confidence, but whispers of fear spread among them. The raiders were strong, and some feared defeat. Ethan stood among them, wearing the ancient armor. Many cadets scoffed when they saw him. You cannot go with us, said one avian cadet, his wings rustling with irritation. This is no place for a human playing dress-up. Ethan simply tightened the armor around his shoulders. Then watch me. The instructors allowed him to join, curious to see what the armor could do. And so Ethan boarded the transport ship with the others, heading into battle for the first time. The colony they reached was in chaos. Smoke rose from burning towers, and frightened settlers fled through the streets. The sky was filled with enemy ships raining fire upon the ground. The alien cadets rushed forward to meet the attackers. Ethan followed, his heart racing. The raiders were tall, armored brutes with cruel weapons, laughing as they tore through defenses. The academy cadets tried to stand against them, but the enemy pushed hard, their numbers overwhelming. Core fought bravely, swinging his heavy blade, but even he struggled against two raiders at once. The avians fired their blasters, yet the enemy shields blocked many shots. The cadets began to fall back, and then Ethan stepped forward. The golden lines of his armor blazed as he raised his arm. A glowing shield burst into life, blocking the blast of an enemy cannon. The explosion shook the ground, but Ethan stood firm. The cadets around him stared in shock. He charged forward, his steps thundering as the armor boosted his speed. His fist struck an enemy soldier and the raider flew back, crashing into a wall. Another swung a blade at him, but the armor's barrier flared, deflecting the strike. With a counterpunch, Ethan sent the raider sprawling. The battlefield shifted. Where moments before the cadets were retreating, now they rallied behind Ethan. "Push forward," he shouted, his voice carrying through the comms. The cadets obeyed, emboldened by the sight of the human standing tall against the raiders. Together they struck back, driving the enemy from the colony's heart. But the raiders were not finished. Their war leader, a towering figure in black armor, stepped forward with a roar. His weapon glowed with dark energy, and even Kor hesitated to face him. The war leader raised his blade, pointing at Ethan. "You wear the ancient armor," he growled. "It belongs to us. Hand it over, little human." Ethan's armor pulsed, answering the challenge with a bright surge of golden light. He stood his ground, his hands tightening into fists. "No," he said firmly. "It chose me, and I won't let you harm them." The raider leader snarled and charged. Their clash shook the battlefield, dark energy against golden light. Ethan blocked, struck, and moved faster than he ever thought possible. Each strike sent shockwaves through the air. The cadets watched in awe. The same human they had mocked was now holding his own against the most feared warrior on the field. At last, with a surge of power, Ethan's armor released a blast of energy, knocking the raider leader back. The warband, stunned, retreated to their ships. The colony was saved. When silence fell, the cadets gathered around Ethan. None laughed now. Kor lowered his blade, his eyes filled with something unfamiliar: respect. The instructor stepped forward, clicking his mandibles thoughtfully. "It seems," he said slowly, "that the human is not as weak as we believed." Ethan stood in the center of the battlefield, breathing hard, the armor still glowing faintly. He had proven himself at last, but he knew this was only the beginning. Far beyond the stars, greater battles were coming. And the armor whispered again in his mind. The battle at the colony had ended, but the war was far from over. The raiders had retreated, yet scouts soon reported that their warband leader had gathered an even larger army. Ships filled with mercenaries and war machines were now heading straight for the Alliance's core worlds. If they succeeded, millions of lives would be lost. Inside the Stellar Academy Council chamber, alien leaders argued in loud voices. The reptilians demanded stronger weapons. The avians wanted to strike first, and the insectoids urged caution. But beneath all their words was fear. None of them had faced an enemy so organized and powerful before. Ethan stood quietly at the edge of the chamber, the golden glow of his armor dimmed to a faint shimmer. He listened as they spoke of strategies, none of which inspired hope. Finally, the insectoid instructor turned his many eyes toward him. "You faced their leader," he clicked. "What do you think, human?" The chamber fell silent. Dozens of alien eyes fixed on Ethan. He took a deep breath. They won't stop unless someone stands against them. You have power, you have armies, but you don't have what they fear. The armor was made for this. It chose me, and I'll lead the fight. The room erupted in shock. A human leading them? Impossible. Kor, the reptilian who had once mocked Ethan, slammed his tail against the floor. "You expect us to follow you? You were nothing but a weakling days ago." Ethan met his gaze calmly. "And yet I saved you when your blade wasn't enough. I don't ask for loyalty. I ask for trust. Fight with me, not for me." The words hung heavy in the air. Slowly, the avian captain nodded. "Perhaps that is what we need. Not just strength, but spirit." Reluctantly, even Kor bowed his head. "Very well, human. Show us the path." The decision was made. Ethan would lead a mixed force of cadets and warriors to intercept the raider fleet before it reached the Alliance's heart. The day of battle arrived. The stars around them burned bright as the Allied fleet dropped out of hyperspace near a barren moon. Across the void, the raider armada appeared. Dozens of ships shaped like claws and fangs, bristling with weapons. At the center was the flagship of their leader, black and massive like a shadow against the stars. In the command chamber, Ethan stood at the front, his armor glowing brightly now. The voice inside his mind whispered again, "Remember, you are not alone. The armor's strength is not yours alone. It is the strength of all who fight beside you." The Allied soldiers prepared themselves. Fear lingered in their hearts, but when they looked at Ethan, standing tall in golden light, something changed. Their fear turned into courage. The battle began. Ships clashed in the dark void, beams of energy tearing across space. Explosions lit the black sky like fireworks. Allied fighters darted between enemy ships, but the raiders pressed hard, their numbers overwhelming. "Ethan, they're breaking our left flank," shouted an avian pilot. Ethan raised his arm, and the armor projected a star map. He saw the weak points instantly, as if the armor guided his eyes. "Core, take your squad and hold the flank. Avians, strike from above. I'll handle the flagship." "What? Alone?" Core growled. "Not alone," Ethan said. "With this." He launched from the command ship in a drop pod. The pod burned across the void and slammed onto the enemy flagship's hull. The doors burst open and Ethan leapt out, his armor glowing like a star. The raiders roared in rage. Soldiers poured from the ship's airlocks, their weapons blazing. Ethan raised his shield, blocking their fire, and surged forward. Each punch, each strike sent enemies flying. The armor's power flowed through him like fire in his veins. Finally, the warband leader appeared again, towering in his black armor. His weapon pulsed with dark energy, stronger than before. "You again," the leader growled. "This time I will crush you, little human." Ethan stood firm, the golden glow surrounding him. "Try." Their blades clashed, light against shadow. Sparks flew across the battlefield. The raider leader struck with brutal force, but Ethan's armor held. Ethan countered with speed and precision, every movement guided by the whispers of the ancient warriors within the armor. The duel raged across the flagship's surface. The Allied fleet watched from afar, their hopes tied to the human who once had been mocked. At last, the raider leader raised his weapon for a killing blow, pouring all his dark energy into one strike. But Ethan's armor blazed brighter than ever, unlocking its final gift. Golden wings of light spread from his back, lifting him into the air. He struck down with all his strength, his blade of pure energy piercing the raider leader's chest. The black armor cracked, and the warband leader fell with a roar that shook the stars. The enemy ships faltered. Without their leader, their will broke. The Allied fleet pressed forward, driving them into retreat. The raider armada scattered, fleeing into the void. Silence fell over the battlefield. Cheers rose through the comms as the cadets and soldiers realized they had won. Ethan landed softly on the command ship's deck. The golden wings faded, leaving him standing once more as the human he had always been. But now no one saw him as weak. Core approached, bowing his head deeply. "Forgive me, human. I was blind. You are more than any of us imagined." The avian captain spread his wings in salute. "From this day, you are not just one of us. You are our champion." Ethan removed his helmet, breathing the cool air. He looked around at the aliens who once mocked him. Now their eyes were filled with respect, even admiration. He smiled faintly. "I'm not a champion because of this armor. I'm a champion because I refuse to give up. That is what it means to be human." The armor pulsed softly, as if in agreement. Ethan turned his gaze toward the stars. The war was not over. More enemies would come, more challenges would rise. But he no longer stood alone, and he no longer doubted himself. Where once there had been laughter and mockery, now there was silence and respect. The human who had been underestimated had become the symbol of hope. And across the galaxy, a new name spread on every world: the human champion.